Hi there, you lovely Aspies and Orties. Kirsten here from her Aspie voice. How's everybody doing? I thought maybe today's video I would talk a little bit about all the crazy that's going on right now, and what the heck happened to 2020, please. Yeah, so if like me, maybe you've been working from home for the last, I think we're on week 6 now, or maybe you're homeschooling your kids, or maybe you're just trying to look after yourself in this crazy, crazy time. Well done you. First thing is, you're doing amazingly well. So please remember that. This is such a difficult time, and there are so many neuros that I speak to who are just losing it, freaking out, can't control their emotions, don't know what to do with their anxiety. And people that I work with have come to me and said, "Hey Kirsten, why are you so calm? How are you kind of controlling yourself during this?" And I'm like, I've had 35 years of practicing emotional regulation. Whether I knew it or not, that's what I was doing. And so it's like this is my Super Bowl, and I've had, every opportunity to practice. And now I can kind of help other people regulate themselves a little bit where I can. I can't, change anybody's physiological makeup, but I thought it would be useful to kind of normalize this a little bit, talk about it, perhaps answer any questions you've got about how maybe I'm coping with things, or people I know are coping with things. And it would be really good to kind of share tips on, how to get through this. So this little COVID-19 germ is really creating havoc, isn't it? Do you know what we've done with the guys I work with? We've called him Steve, because doesn't COVID-19 sound really frightening, and we don't like the sound of that. It sounds unnatural. So what we've been saying is Steve is a jerk. Steve's a jerk. Steve. Don't you wish Steve would just go away? By doing that, what we're trying to do is normalize it so that it just feels like an irritating person, so that our brains almost try to not inflame over this idea of COVID-19. So we're going to talk about Steve a little bit, and I think there's 2 things I would like to kind of talk about, and that's the Aspie challenges and the Orty challenges that we might be going through right now, but then also those real opportunities for us to use our superpower as amazing Aspies and Orties, and how we can help ourselves, help our community, and also how we can help other people, other neuros, because this is our time to shine, guys. Okay, so let's talk about these challenges, and I bet that for every 2 or 3 I think of, you can think of 10 more. But I'm just going to pick the ones that are kind of most pertinent to me, and how I have, I guess, tried to deal with them and normalize them, and not let myself get too worked up and anxious about it. So the first thing is uncertainty. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but control and certainty are really important coping mechanisms for me. So, like, I'll plan out my diary so that I know exactly what I'm doing every day, and I will plan my food shopping, so I've got a list and I tick it off as I go, and I might even plan my meals for the week, and so I know exactly what's happening. And I might even plan things like my cash flow as far in the future as, say, 2 years, so that I know that if I want to save for something and maybe, I don't know, have a little holiday if I'm lucky enough, that I can save a little bit each month and keep that in my savings account. COVID-19 and Steve has basically just shot that all to pieces. And It wasn't until I was watching the Disney movie Frozen 2, and I'm hoping some of you have seen this because it's my current film crush. I love Olaf. And there's a scene in there where Elsa has just finished singing Into the Unknown, and all the element crystals have just smashed down on Arendelle, and she has to get everybody out of Arendelle to safety. And once she's got them to safety, she says to Olaf, "Hey Olaf, are you okay?" And he's covered in these little crystals. And he says, yes, this is called controlling what we can't control. And I thought that was a really, really beautiful thing that we can kind of latch onto in this time. Because that's exactly what we've got to do. We've got to find these little glimmers, these little crystals of things we can control, and try and accept as best we can the fact that we can't control the wider stuff. So I'm not a doctor. Pretty sure you're not a doctor. Some of you might be amazing immunologists, in which case could you please hurry up and get a vaccine? However, we don't necessarily know what this virus is about. Some of us probably don't even understand how it works biologically, what it does to the body, all those kind of things. But what we do know is that it's frightening and it's nasty and it's out there. So what we need to do is try and control our own environments so we can control them. So for me, I have this room. This is my study. This is where I read. This is where I'm working from home at the moment. And I control everything that goes on in this room. Nobody comes in this room unless I allow them to. Even the dogs who, let's be honest, they've got carte blanche to come in and out. They're not in here all the time, so this is my safe space. I've controlled other things, like I've been doing uni work and I've been planning out my days. I've been, like I say, controlling finances and keeping spreadsheets just so that I can keep on top of what's going on. It's these little things that allow us to trick our brains into thinking that we're in control of our little part of the world. And this leads me to an interesting saying that I was told probably about 20 years ago. And somebody said to me, for complete peace of mind, you need to resign as general manager of the universe. And I've carried that with me. And what that means is I don't have to control everything. I can control some things, and that's great. But I can't control everything. And so that's how I've been approaching Steve a little bit, with uncertainty. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Second thing, it's a real big one, is anxiety. And this is anxiety over work, anxiety over my health, anxiety because of the constant media coverage surrounding COVID-19. And it's been pretty full on. I don't know about anybody else, but I have been overwhelmed. My brain at times has felt like it's on fire because I just can't take any more information. And there's been a couple of times I've gone into shutdown. And for anybody watching that doesn't understand what shutdown is, it's where you are so overwhelmed with information or sensory experiences that your body literally shuts down. You can't process anything else. You can't cope with anything else, and you just want to go to sleep, be quiet, and, hopefully the next day you'll feel a bit better. So how have I coped with this? There's been a couple of coping strategies. The first one is I am so very blessed that I have an amazing clinical psychologist that I work with. And she had opened up some additional sessions, so I very luckily managed to have some additional sessions with her. The second thing that I did was I've limited my media exposure. So that includes Facebook, it includes news on the TV, news on the internet, anything that you know, previously I might have, you know, paid a bit of attention to, I've limited that back to an hour a day. That's all I allow myself. And that allows me to get the headlines, and that's it. I don't need to know how many people have died. I don't need to know the ins and outs of everything that politicians are saying. All I need to do is keep myself abreast of what's going to keep me safe and healthy. And what I'm doing is I'm filling my time with the kind of TV that we might not, you know, acknowledge that we watch very often, but rubbish American reality TV or cooking programs or documentaries or cartoons. Anything that is not COVID-19 related, I'm watching it right now. And it's really good. It's keeping my brain nice and calm. And I've got like this little equilibrium going on at the moment. And then the third thing, and this is something I'm encouraging everybody I come into contact with to do, and that's every day I find something that brings me joy. And I do that because it's really important to feel human at the moment. And so that might be going for a walk with your dog or your friend, you know, if you live with them. Or it might be, I don't know, eating a really nice chocolate bar. Or it might be reading a book or watching a really rubbish American sitcom, or whatever that is, going and getting some exercise, you know, whatever makes you happy once a day. Really make that effort to, you know, go and do that. And it's not for anybody else but yourself. And for me, I like spending time with my dogs. So I make sure that every evening I spend some time doing training with my dogs. They enjoy it. I enjoy it. So it's a win-win for all of us. The other thing I wanted to say about anxiety is the new types of anxiety that we're experiencing. So for me particularly, shopping anxiety has been awful. I used to get my shopping delivered since the supermarkets would do that. Then they stopped doing that. And that meant I then had to go into a supermarket with a pile of neurotypicals and be sensory overwhelmed and also be worried that I was going to catch a virus, and it just became too much, all consuming. So what I've tried to do is firstly limit the amount of shopping trips I do. I'm very lucky. My husband will go first thing on a morning, so like 7 a.m. if he can, to go and get our vegetables. And so that means that there's not many people around. Alternatively, I've heard from lots of people that the supermarkets late at night, so anything after 7 p.m. seem to be relatively quiet. So maybe you could try that. And then there's also ordering online. Oh, what would we do without the internet right now? I've tried to buy things that I knew would keep in the cupboard, in the pantry. I've tried to go to warehouses like Costco at quiet times and bulk buy things that I knew would last. I have a freezer full of chicken for my dogs, and me, I guess. And so it's all of these things that just help relieve that anxiety a little bit. You know, maybe anybody watching this might have a different suggestion. It would be really great if you wouldn't mind commenting below and just sharing that with everybody else, because I'm sure they would all love to hear your tips and tricks and suggestions for how we might deal with any of these challenges that I've just talked about. Okay, so now we're on to the good bit. This is our Aspie and Autie opportunities to show the world how we rock and how we've been rocking this isolation thing for years, just nobody realised it. So first thing first, this isolation thing isn't new. I didn't like leaving the house before. I'm doing it even less now. That's great. Everything comes to me now. I get to work from home. I love that. I get to speak to people through a video, which means I don't have sensory overload. I don't have to deal with my boss as much. Don't tell him that. I get to support my colleagues with their emotional well-being, but I get to do it without kind of absorbing their feelings, which is a real problem that I have because I'm very empathic and I tend to like soak up everybody's stuff with it like a sponge, I guess. And so this is something that neurotypicals have never done before. So we need to essentially teach them, much as we've been learning from them for however many years, all of our lives, and we've been copying and masking and using their social cues. Now is the time that we can say to them, hey, you know what? We're actually really good at this. So let us help you. Let us suggest to you the kind of things that you can do in isolation. And that might be, okay, here's some video games that you might not have come across. This would be great because you can play it with your family or you can play it with friends across the internet. Or, hey, here's a new app that you can play. For example, I really love playing a video game on my iPad called Marvel Contests of Champions. By doing that, I'm kind of enjoying me time. I can do it while sat next to my husband. I can do it while the dogs are there. But I don't actually have to really interact with anybody that I don't want to. The neuros don't know about this stuff. They've never had to. They're so interested in going off and spending 6 hours shopping or going out for coffees or whatever. We've mastered indoors. This is our time, people. We're amazing. And so, whereas neurotypicals in the past have had the upper hand with the social stuff, it's our time to shine. So let's tell them all about it. Let's give them some tips and tricks. Let's say to them, hey, we know some really good puzzle stores. Or have you tried cross stitch? Or let me show you about how to darn socks, or how to make paper cranes, or all these awesome things that we've taught ourselves. And YouTube is amazing. We can learn practically anything now. It's so exciting. In fact, I was on a call with my colleagues and we were learning how to do origami yesterday. So things like that are new to me. Let's just point the neuros in the right direction. Let's just give them a hand. Because Aspie superpower, Auti superpower, one-on-one. And the other thing is, have you ever heard the jar of marbles theory? You probably have, or I might have mentioned the spoons on my Instagram channel. So the idea is that you might have 15 spoons for the day, and every task that you have to do takes a spoon, or it might take 2 spoons if it's something that requires extra sensory overload or extra effort. And so getting up might be 1 spoon. Getting on the train to go to work might take 2 spoons. Being at work for the day might take 3 spoons, and so on and so forth. And what happens is when you're ASD, you run out of spoons pretty quickly, the energy depletes, and by the time you get to the end of the day, you have no spoons left. We don't have to travel right now. We're inside, we're kicking it, so we might have some extra spoons. So this is a really good time to recharge some of those batteries. And I always think of us as having, I probably run on about half full most of the time. But wouldn't it not be nice to get to 75% full? So maybe I could get some extra sleep. Or maybe I could, take my dogs for an extra walk so that, I feel like I'm getting a bit more exercise. Or maybe I could spend some time prepping my food for the next day, which gets me something a little bit more nutritious than I might normally eat. It's all these kind of things that give us an opportunity to look after ourselves and do a little bit of self-care, because that's really important when you're on the spectrum, I think. Let's look after ourselves and let's use this as an opportunity to do so. And finally, because I'm sure you're all terribly bored by now, this is a really good time to use those extra spoons to learn something new. So maybe you've always fancied learning a new language. Or maybe there's been a jigsaw puzzle in the cupboard for 10 years that you've really wanted to do, but you've just never had the time to do it. Or maybe you think you're the next Heston Blumenthal and you're gonna cook up some amazing gourmet creations. Whatever it might be, this is the time to do it. Let's get that Aspie superpower on. We have more time, we are inside, we can kill this. So you are awesome, every single one of you. Please don't ever forget that. Just because things are a little bit scary right now and we don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, doesn't mean that this is a time that we should just kind of curl up and hide underneath our duvets. This is exactly the time we should be letting that Aspie light shine. And we should be supporting each and every one of us in the community, because together we are an amazing group of people. We have so much to give to society, and right now the Neuros need our help. So let's look after them, let's give it to them, and let's keep supporting everybody. Until next time, if you've enjoyed today, please feel free to comment or subscribe down below, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye guys.